This is part one of a very cool four-part series on how to wrap a countertop in a kitchen. Countertops are extremely expensive, so you're going to see this one, this is the original, kind of a plasticky looking wood, and it's going to be transformed into something super amazing. Gloss black metallic on the countertop, then brush gold above it, and then both sections covered with PPF. So it saves a huge amount of money. The transformation is absolutely amazing, and I'm telling you, the tips and tricks in this are going to make you a lot of money, because a lot of people want this because it's big cost savings, plus the design freedom is amazing. So step one is removing the silicone that was in between the vertical section and the countertop. Once that was removed, it's all about removing, in this case, the burners and the sink. So it involves gas and electricity for the burner, so be extra careful during this phase. Always want to use gloves. Always make sure the electricity is off. Also the water, because now the kitchen sink is coming out. Count for all the parts. And now it's time for cleaning. Here, taking the degreaser, going straight into those corners where the silicone is moved. Always want to make sure you get all the silicone out. Then here, you want to make sure you use a very good degreaser, because a lot of grease can build up around the stove. Here, taking a plastic scraper, going from one side to the other, and then sopping that up. In most cases, you want to use a paper towel for this, because the grease, don't want to ruin microfiber towels. Then here for the main countertop, even though it's in good condition, spraying it and coming in with the plastic scraper to remove all those little bits. Next up is adhesive remover, and if you notice, I put a little masking tape on that vertical section to lower the surface energy for the panels going down, but also to prevent the adhesive remover getting on that vertical section too early. Always want to put primer on about, I would say, 10-15 minutes right before the install. Don't want to let it sit too long because it becomes less effective. So getting the butt joint in between the two pieces, getting that corner at the very end of the countertop, and then here going around the sink area. And at the bottom of the countertop right here, very important to put adhesive remover there. Notice I put masking tape on the handles to lower that surface energy as well. This particular material I'm putting on the countertop 10 mil thick, so very important to get the corners, so I want extra hold on all those edges. And then while the adhesive promoter dries, I'm going to take that time to trim down the panels. I'm going to wrap this countertop in two pieces because it was made in two pieces. I'm going to have them butt joint right at that natural break between the two sections. Very important to get precise measurements, left to right, top to bottom. Don't want to have too much film to fight with here, but also obviously not too little. Have the material liner side facing up, so I'm going to take advantage of the grid. So I make the marks on the grid, and once I make those marks, come in with a straight edge. Always a good idea to use a straight edge with interior wrapping film. Just don't cut it by hand. That wavy gravy edge sometimes can really kind of fight you. Having that precise edge, especially on something that is really clearly defined as this countertop in terms of angles, really good to have straight edges match up because it really can help with that workflow. Here, doing the double cut liner and that liner leash that I call it, so it's very easy to pull off the liner once I get started. But even though it's clean, I'm now coming back in with a tack cloth just to get up any little specks of dirt that has settled during the trimming of the panels. Got that leash liner, and I always want to make sure I pull the liner towards the open side. Very important, as I mentioned just a little bit earlier, to make sure all the straight edges match up, and that can really help speed up the install time. Don't want to just kind of randomly throw the panel down. Just want to make sure everything lines up. That'll save it, especially with cutting at the very end. So the more kind of trimming you can do ahead of time, the easier it is to kind of cut and get all this stuff lined up. So now that I've released the liner with that liner release, I lock the adhesive right on. I now have a permanent hinge. Release the liner just a little bit from this top section here and slowly pull off the liner while I get right to that edge. So boom, no need to trim right there. Now for this section, that's going to come right over that giant opening in the sink. I release the liner just a little bit. What's particularly nice about this countertop, it does have a bit of a texture to it, which means the surface energy is a little low. So usually sometimes wrapping with interior film is really quite aggressive, and as soon as it tacks on the surface, it's hard to pick back up. This was a little forgiving, which made this install definitely easier. And then about the halfway point, I cut the liner off right here to make it a little easier to get back to those raised objects right there. And now at this section, once I'm close enough, I can release the entire liner. So just being super patient during that process can be a big payoff. Once I'm to the first raised object right here, that corner section, I get the material, I tuck it in, and make a relief cut. And notice I make my relief cut in, so I don't come up short as it swings around here. Then once I take it a little bit farther, I have that pull, so I'm going to cut it right there. So once I make a cut vertically now, I can swing the sections around. So it's all about making smart relief cuts and always trying to avoid coming up short. So you see how easily the material relaxes around there. And here, clicking my blade so it's extra sharp, and now we get to corner. So right here we have a corner transition. I do a little zero stretch, I shrink it on the corner, then make a relief cut right in the middle section. So about a 45-degree cut. Fold open the inside right now, and I tuck it onto the top so it doesn't get in my way. Round the corner right at the top so it's extra tight. And now here I do a flush cut on the inside portion right there. So it lays super flush just on the inside of the corner. Cool. Once that's set now, here, this is more zero stretch. Notice my free hand right now. My free hand is not pulling at all. What I'm doing right now is I'm literally trying to shrink the material to that top corner. So I'm not pulling, I'm not doing anything. I'm actually trying to allow the material to actually shrink back a little bit so it hugs that corner. Then once it hugs that corner, I'm going to pull down with my free hand just a little bit, and then I'm going to squeegee. But notice I'm barely squeegeeing past that corner. So you really have to focus on this corner right now to make sure it's super tight. The chance of it bridging right there and getting a bubble or wrinkle is super high, and that obviously lowers quality. So once I'm past that top corner, then I can take it down to the bottom edge, which again, I do a little zero stretch. So I'm adding tons of heat, not to stretch, but to really kind of shrink the material, because this particular interior film shrinks a lot. So once the bottom section is set, I give it a kiss of heat, round it a little bit, and then I make the overlap, I would say about 1/8 of an inch past the first cut, so it's nice and smooth. And I carefully release that excess film, so you only want to cut through the top layer, run my finger to seal the deal, and that edge faces just around the corner, so it looks seamless. Now for this bottom section here, just under the countertop is just raw exposed wood, very low surface energy. So here, because I've relaxed everything and added adhesive promoter, it's going to stick as a flush cut right at the base, so no need to overwrap there. Now here, cut away the excess film right around the sink, and I mentioned earlier that little steep drop off right there on the edge. So very precise cutting. This is actually probably the hardest cut of this entire countertop right here, because that gap is super tight. Wood is always a little soft and really kind of tricky to cut. So the chance of my blade jumping off and out of that gap is super high, so extra sharp blade pays off there. Here, this is a standard squeegee cut, and first panel is on, and now we get to the second panel. And you see, having the discipline of good habits, taking that tack cloth, just removing any speck of dust. Everything here has been cut to size, just like I mentioned earlier, so it's going to fit in there like a puzzle piece. Liner leash pulled out, locked it in right there, release the liner halfway, and then just tuck it right into that upper corner. No need to fight excess material because it's going to fit in there like a puzzle piece, and that's why I spend so much time during the prep phase measuring and cutting, because it speeds up the install dramatically. Same overlap on that inside corner, so the overlap faces on the refrigerator side, so it looks nice and seamless. And now here, unlike the sink area where it dropped in 90 degrees and then to the big opening, here I'm actually cutting it slightly short because the burner sits on top. Always want to cut it slightly short because as it's fed in, there's no risk of it grabbing. So very easy, straightforward cut, doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And then the final step right now is wiping everything down. And the reason why I'm wiping it down, because PPF is going right on top. So I'm going to go straight into the PPF install because it's now nice and pristine. So if you've never seen a PPF on a countertop, well, you're about to. Thanks for watching. Justin Pate.